All right, listeners, get ready for a wild one today. This deep dive, well, let's just say it's a rabbit hole I wasn't expecting.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about USAID, that big government agency dealing with global
Yeah,
issues,
USAID,
and
sure. What?
Dogecoin.
Dogecoin.
Yep, you heard right, that meme cryptocurrency.
Wow.
Seriously, you guys sent in some wild sources for this one. Let's just say things are going to get interesting, like really interesting.
I'm intrigued. Two totally different worlds, right? USAID trying to, help with international development and all that.
Right, huge organization.
And then you've got Dogecoin, a digital currency that literally started as a joke. Makes you wonder, is there something more here? Some connection we're not seeing?
That's the question, isn't it? Like, are these accusations about USAID funding ending up in the wrong hands true?
Right, yeah.
And can Dogecoin really be involved in something as serious as, like, terrorism financing? I mean, come on, it's Dogecoin.
I know, right? Well, let's not jump to conclusions. First, we got to understand USAID, big picture.
Yeah, for sure.
So they've been around since 1961. Their goal? Provide economic and humanitarian assistance all over the world.
Yeah, they're massive.
Huge $27 billion budget annually.
Whoa.
Yeah. And they work through all sorts of channels like direct transfers to governments, partnership with NGOs like the Red Cross, the World Bank,
Yeah.
even contracts with private companies.
Okay, so $27 billion. That's a lot of money. But the sources we got, well, they kind of suggest things aren't always so simple.
Yeah, you have to wonder, right? With that much money, how do you even keep track?
Right, and there's a history of controversy with USAID, isn't there?
There is, unfortunately. You've got accusations of USAID being used for intelligence operations like undercover stuff.
Seriously.
Yeah. Allegations of aid being used to push U.S. political agendas.
Hmm.
And, of course, worries about corruption. Funds being mishandled. It's a lot.
That's a pretty big list of potential problems. Our sources specifically mention this thing called the Zunzinho scandal in Cuba.
Oh, right. Zunzimia. Yeah, back in 2014, it came out that USAID had secretly funded this social media project in Cuba.
Social media project. Sounds harmless.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people saw it as a way to, like, destabilize the Cuban government.
Ah, I see. Undermining them.
Yeah. It raised a lot of ethical questions, caused international backlash, too.
So it wasn't just about money being misused, but maybe even used for, not so transparent purposes.
Exactly. And it really highlights the difficulty of overseeing an organization as big as USAID.
Sure, especially when they're operating in all these, like, complicated and sometimes dangerous environments.
Absolutely. The logistics are mind-boggling.
Which leads us to the next question. How does USAID actually get all that money where it's supposed to go?
Right.
Tracking billions of dollars globally can't be easy.
Oh, it's a nightmare, especially in like conflict zones or places with weak governments.
Yeah, that makes
The sources you send in, they mention this group, Shigar, yeah, the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction. They found that billions, literally billions, were lost in Afghanistan and Iraq.
billions.
Yeah, to fraud, waste, just mismanagement during those reconstruction efforts.
Wow, okay, I know it's a huge aid effort, but billions, that's insane.
It is, and it just shows how hard it is to make sure that aid gets to the right people.
Especially in places where there's not much oversight and, corruption is a big problem.
For sure. I mean, how do you even begin to tackle that?
Right. But, I mean, how does all this connect to terrorism financing? Like, our sources mentioned concerns about USAID funds indirectly supporting extremist groups.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. While, USAID wants to fight terrorism, there have been cases where their money ended up in the hands of extremist groups.
Mm.
And it's often not intentional, more like an unintended consequence of the situation on the ground.
So less of a let's fund terrorists and more of a oops, that wasn't supposed to happen.
Right, exactly. Like, take Syria, for example. During the Civil War, there were reports of USAID aid, meant for regular people.
Yeah.
It got taken by militant groups, like the al-Nusra Front.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't the USAID was purposely giving them money. It's just that the whole conflict was so chaotic, it was almost impossible to control where the aid went.
Yeah, trying to do good, but facing a ton of obstacles.
And it gets even more complicated. Like in Somalia, investigations found that aid, some from USAID, ended up helping al-Shabaab. They were taxing the aid programs, basically profiting from them.
That's so frustrating.
It is. It seems like in these situations, making sure aid only goes to those who need it is almost impossible.
Yeah, it's a tough one. But then, and this is where it gets weird, you've got Dogecoin entering the picture.
Dogecoin.
I know, right? It's like we go from USAID and terrorism financing to Dogecoin, but there might be a connection there worth exploring.
Wow, I did not see that coming. So remind me, Dogecoin is
The meme coin, low transaction fees, endorsements from people like Elon Musk. It's known for being fun and lighthearted. So how does it connect to global finance and, potentially illegal stuff?
Yeah, good question. Well, we got to look at the regulatory concerns around crypto in general and Dogecoin specifically. Can they be used to get around sanctions, fund terrorism?
Yeah.
And how are governments supposed to track transactions when it's all decentralized? That's a big one.
So it's like someone could theoretically use Dogecoin to send money to a terrorist group without leaving a trace.
It's a possibility and one that regulators are definitely worried about. Investigating this stuff is super hard because the system is designed to be anonymous. You're trying to track money that's constantly moving and changing hands online. It's a mess.
It does sound messy, like a digital shell game.
Perfect analogy. That's why you have organizations like the FATF stepping in.
FATF.
Yeah, the Financial Action Task Force. They're this intergovernmental group trying to fight money laundering and terrorism financing globally.
Oh, okay. So what are they doing about crypto?
They're pushing for tighter regulations on those crypto exchanges, making them do know your customer checks and implement anti-money laundering protocols, that sort of thing.
So basically trying to bring crypto under the same rules as traditional finance.
Exactly, but it's tough, right? Governments see the potential benefits of blockchain, but they don't want it being used for crime. It's a tightrope walk.
Makes sense, but I bet not everyone in the crypto world is happy about more regulation.
You're right, there's this whole counter-argument from crypto enthusiasts who say that blockchain is actually more transparent.
Wait, hold on. More transparent. How does that work if it's decentralized?
Well, with blockchain, every single transaction is recorded publicly, permanently. It's like a digital trail that can't be erased. So it's actually harder to hide illegal activity because the evidence is always there, out in the open.
Oh, so it's kind of like a public ledger that anyone can check.
Pretty much. And as these big exchanges start following the rules, the thinking is that the risk of money laundering and terrorist financing will go down.
So we've got this tension, right, between the risk of misuse and the potential for more transparency. But how does this all connect to the bigger picture? USAID, terrorism financing, Dogecoin. How does it all fit on a global level?
That's the million-dollar question. Think about it. USAID is this major player in global financial stability. Their actions can create dependencies and shift power dynamics. Then you have crypto, like Dogecoin, offering a way to operate outside of the traditional financial systems that governments and central banks control.
So it's like a challenge to the established order.
Exactly. Crypto could be a way to achieve financial sovereignty, giving people and organizations more control over their own finances. And that's what makes it so fascinating. Governments are struggling with how to regulate crypto to stop bad things from happening, while also encouraging innovation and recognizing its potential for good.
It's almost like they're playing chess, trying to guess each other's moves.
A high-stakes game of chess, for sure. And that's where Dogecoin comes in. Is it a force for good, a potential threat, or just a sideshow?
Big questions, right? And we're just getting started. So before we got sidetracked by Dogecoin, we were talking about how blockchain can actually make things more transparent, right?
Yeah, that's right. We got to remember that blockchain technology, which is behind Dogecoin and other cryptocurrencies, can really improve transparency in financial transactions, even better than traditional methods sometimes.
I think that's where a lot of people get confused. I mean, how can something that's decentralized, operating outside the normal financial system, be more transparent? It seems kind of counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Well, it all comes down to how the blockchain works. Every transaction is recorded on this public ledger, permanently. It's like leaving a digital trail that anyone can follow.
Okay, I kind of get that.
So it makes hiding illegal activities way harder because the evidence is always there. On the blockchain, it can't be erased.
So theoretically, less shady stuff going on behind closed doors.
Yeah, exactly. And as more crypto exchanges start following regulations, making users identify themselves, putting anti-money laundering measures in place, the risk of bad stuff happening goes down.
Right, makes sense. But let's circle back to USAID for a sec. We talked earlier about how difficult it is to track where the money goes, making sure it actually reaches the people who need it.
Yeah.
Could a cryptocurrency like Dogecoin, with its low transaction fees and all that, actually offer a solution to that problem?
That's interesting. We didn't see any examples of USAID actually using Dogecoin in our research.
Yeah, no, me neither.
But it's definitely an idea worth thinking about. Imagine aid organizations could bypass all those middlemen, the corrupt governments, and just send funds straight to the people in need using crypto. It could be huge.
It's like cutting out all the red tape. Less corruption, lower costs, and the aid gets directly to the people who need it. Sounds almost too good to be true.
Well, there are still some challenges, obviously. Not everyone around the world uses crypto yet. Not everyone even has access to the technology. And then you have security concerns, volatility. It's not a perfect solution.
Right, of course. So where does that leave us? We've got this emerging tech with both risks and opportunities, and you've got this huge organization dealing with some age-old problems. It's like we're at a crossroads.
Yeah, we are. And the future depends on a lot of factors. Government regulations, technological advancements, the choices people and organizations make. It's hard to predict what will happen.
Totally. But I think it's time to zoom out again. Look at the bigger picture. What does all of this mean for the future of global finance and development?
Ah, the big question. It's fascinating to think about how USAID, terrorism financing, and cryptocurrencies all kind of come together on the world stage.
I mean, we talked about USAID's role in promoting development, but it's not always sunshine and rainbows, right? Their actions can create dependencies, influence who has power and who doesn't.
Oh, for sure. They have a lot of financial power, and their decisions have big consequences globally. It can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how it's used.
And then you throw crypto into the mix, it offers a potential alternative to the traditional financial systems controlled by governments and central banks.
Right. Crypto, like Dogecoin, gives individuals and organizations a way to operate more independently with more control over their own finances. It's like a shift in power, something we haven't seen before.
A challenge to the way things have always been done.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why governments are struggling with how to regulate crypto. They want to stop the bad stuff, but also encourage innovation because it could be good for everyone. It's a tricky balancing act.
For sure. But what does this mean for global development going forward? Are we moving toward a future where crypto is at the center of aid and financial empowerment?
It's certainly possible. Just imagine aid going directly to the people, bypassing corrupt governments, all through crypto. It would be a complete game changer.
It would be, but that would also disrupt a lot of existing power structures, wouldn't it? It seems like that would create a whole bunch of new problems.
Oh, it would definitely cause some friction, but it's also a chance to rethink global development, focus on empowering individuals instead of top-down control.
That's a really interesting idea, but we have to be realistic. We're still in the early days of this whole crypto thing. Lots of challenges ahead.
You're right, not everyone has access to crypto or the technology, and there are still those concerns about security and volatility.
It really does feel like we're on the edge of something new, but we don't know what it'll be yet. Exciting and a little scary all at the same time.
Exactly, and we need to be careful going forward, thinking about all the potential benefits and risks.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about. We've done from USAID to crypto and everything in between. I'm still wrapping my head around it, to be honest.
And we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore. This is just the start of a much bigger conversation about the future of finance, development, and technology's role in all of it.
So, what's the one thing our listeners should take away from all of this? What should they be thinking about?
I'd say the most important thing is to think critically. Don't just accept things at face value, even if it comes from a source you trust. Do your own research, ask questions, and consider different viewpoints.
Don't just take things as they are. Dig a little deeper.
Exactly. And remember, this is an ongoing conversation. The future of finance, aid, and tech is being shaped right now, and we're all part of it.
Well said. And that's what the deep dive is all about. We hope this episode has given you some new insights into USAID, cryptocurrencies, and how everything is connected in this crazy world.
And remember, this is just the beginning. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep learning.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and a huge shout out to our listeners for sending in such thought-provoking sources. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into well, who knows what. Until then, stay curious. Okay, so here we are, the final part of this deep dive. It's been a wild ride, huh? Started with USAID, this huge organization focused on global development, and somehow we ended up talking about Dogecoin. Dogecoin, a cryptocurrency that started as a joke?
Yeah, pretty much. It really shows you how connected everything is these days. You start talking about one thing, and you end up somewhere completely unexpected.
And that's what the deep dive is all about, uncovering those weird connections, exploring all the complicated stuff that most people don't even think about.
Right, and we've covered a lot of ground. We talked about USAID's goals, all the controversies, and the challenges they face in actually delivering aid effectively. Then we jumped into the world of terrorism financing, the potential risks of crypto, and the idea that blockchain could actually make finance more transparent and fair.
It's a lot to take in. So for our listeners out there, what does it all mean for them? How can they use all this information to better understand the world?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is to think critically about everything. Don't just take things at face value, even if it seems like it's coming from a reliable source. Do your own research, ask questions, and be open to different perspectives.
Yeah, don't just accept things blindly. Dig deeper.
Exactly. We've seen how easy it is for aid to be misused, how complicated the fight against terrorism financing is, and how something like Dogecoin, which seems like a joke, can have huge implications.
And these are just a few examples, right? The world's constantly changing, and it's more important than ever to stay informed, have those tough conversations, and be willing to challenge your own beliefs.
Because in a world overflowing with information, knowing how to think critically is like a superpower.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that's really the core of the deep dive. We want to get you thinking, asking questions, and exploring the world around you with open eyes.
We hope this episode gave you a new perspective on USAID, crypto, and just how interconnected everything really is.
So the next time someone brings up Dogecoin, you can go beyond much wow, right? You can talk about how it could revolutionize finance, the regulations it's facing, and even how it might be used to distribute aid.
You'll be able to discuss how USAID actually works, all the challenges they face, and the concerns about terrorism financing. And of course, the whole debate around regulating crypto.
But more importantly, you'll have the skills to evaluate all that information, form your own opinions, and be part of those important conversations. Because at the end of the day, it's about being an informed and engaged citizen, right?
Absolutely.
Well, that about wraps it up for this deep dive. Thank you so much for listening, and a huge thank you to our listeners for sending in such thought-provoking sources. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive. Until then, stay curious.